Hello, my name is Amy Choi, and I am in the Masters of Arts in Teaching Secondary Social Studies program at NC State. And the book that I'm going to introduce to you guys today is called The First Days of School: How to Be an Effective Teacher, and it's written by Harry Wong and Rosemary Wong. I had to read this book for another course in this program, and it was really helpful and had lots of good tips and advice, and so I wanted to introduce it to you guys. Really quickly, to give the summary of the person who wrote this book, the author is Harry Wong, and he's an educator, a speaker, and an author that has sold over 3.5 million books. He does have 35 years of teaching experience, but he's probably most famous as an educational speaker and author of this book, The First Days of School, which was first published in 2001, and he co-wrote it with his wife Rosemary Wong, who is also an educator. And it was this book, The First Days of School, that sold most of the 3.5 million books. This is his most famous publication. There's 4 editions of the book, and it also comes with supplementary resources such as a DVD. And there's also online resources that you can use along with this book. The book is not like a novel with chapters that you have to necessarily read in order. It's more like a guidebook that helps teachers, regardless of teaching style or experience, be as efficient and effective as they can in the classroom. So regardless of what kind of a teacher you are or how long you've been teaching, you can read this book and learn something from it. And like I mentioned, it's not necessarily a book that you have to read in order, because each unit is devoted to an important quality of an effective teacher. So essentially, you can just open the book to whatever chapter, and then it's laid out so that there's helpful tips along the margins of it, and quotes and other resources such as websites that can help you to become a better teacher. And so the book is divided into 5 parts. The first part is called The Teacher, and it describes how a successful teacher must know and practice the 3 characteristics of an effective teacher, which is the next 3 here: positive expectations, classroom management, and lesson mastery. The effective teacher has positive expectations for student success. And that includes things like how to help all students succeed, how to dress for success, and how to invite students to learn, and how to increase student behavior. And then the second characteristic of an effective teacher is to be an extremely good classroom manager. So this is probably the most important chapter in the book, and it talks about how to have a well-managed classroom, how to have the classroom ready, how to introduce yourself to the classroom, how to assign seats, how to start class, and all of these kinds of strategies that essentially you need to know how to do from the very first day of school. And Harry Wong really stresses and emphasizes that the first day of school is the most important day. So you have to make sure that everything is clear and ready on the first day of school. And then the third characteristic of an effective teacher is lesson mastery, which means a successful teacher knows how to design lessons that will help students to achieve. And there's 4 parts to that. The first part is that a teacher has to know how to create an effective assignment. The second is a successful teacher needs to know how to test for student learning. The third one is how to assess for student learning. And then the fourth one is how to enhance student learning. So these are all parts of lesson mastery that will help the students to achieve, because he says that the teachers are here to help the students. And then the last unit is the professional, which basically means the teacher who constantly learns and grows becomes a professional educator. So he talks about how to become a teacher leader. And like I mentioned briefly before, certain editions of the book also comes with the DVD. And for the DVD that I have in my book, it features another teacher who shows how she implemented the first days of school into her classroom. So it's a very practical way to see how it was directly utilized in the classroom. And so The most important part, like I mentioned, of this book, and probably the main points that comes out from this book, is from the unit on classroom management. And he emphasizes a lot of times that there's a clear distinction between classroom management and then classroom discipline, or trying to just punish your students. And classroom management is basically all of the things that a teacher does that'll organize students and space, time, and material so that learning can take place. And so there's four main points to classroom management. The first one is that a successful classroom, or the characteristics of a successful classroom, is that number one, students are deeply involved in their work, especially with academic teacher-led instruction. And so the teacher must first show them how the work is to be done. The second thing is that students know what is expected of them and are generally successful, so they know what the expectations and the objectives of each class are going to be. The third characteristic of a successful classroom is that there's relatively very little wasted time, confusion, or disruption. And he mentions how if there are disruptions, then you have to deal with it immediately without distracting from the other students in the classroom. And then the last quality of a successful classroom is that the climate of the classroom is work oriented, so they know that each thing that they do has a goal and a purpose, but then overall the classroom still needs to be relaxed and pleasant, and that students aren't too tense or nervous or stressed out in the classroom because of the volume of the work that's expected, or because the instructions are unclear. And so there's a few important teaching strategies that he mentions that I want to discuss before I finish this webinar. And there's three main points that he mentions. And his book is very, very well organized. There's lots of bullet points so that it's clear what he views as important. And so three of the ones that I do want to share with you guys, the first one is that most behavior problems that happen in the classroom, they're caused by the teacher's failure to teach students how to follow a procedure. So he does not say that such behavior problems are the result of poor students, or saying that the students' behaviors are poor or anything like that. He actually says it's because the teacher had failed to show the students how to follow procedures. And the way that you can do that is to explain the procedure, rehearse the procedure, and then immediately reinforce the procedure using positive reinforcement. Another thing that must be taught in the first days of school, the most important things that he mentions that must be taught, is discipline, procedure, and routines. So that from the first few days of school, the students immediately know the disciplines, the procedures for each classroom, and then the routines that they'll be doing in every single class. And so that when class begins, you can easily get students to work as long as you have three criteria. The students have an assignment, so the assignment is there and it's clear. They know where to find the assignment, so they always know this is the place where the assignments will either be written or passed out. And then lastly, they know why they're doing their assignment. So you have to explain that this isn't just busy work, but it's actually some kind of purpose and objective that is being met by them fulfilling and completing their assignment. And then lastly, the quote from the book. There's lots of quotes, like I mentioned. He uses lots of boxes and bullet points that really stick out and are organized so that you can just flip through and really learn a lot from the book without having to sit down and read it all in one sitting. But then there's two quotes that are really good. The first one is that your success during the school year will be determined by what you do on the first days of school. And then the second one is the most important thing to establish in the first week of school is consistency. So these are actually on the first page of his book, because he says this is the most important thing that you should take away from this entire book. That you start off very strong on the first days of school and you establish those kinds of clear procedures and routines that the students know what is expected of them. And then you remain consistent in reinforcing these kinds of rules and procedures so that students can succeed in your classroom. And so that's what this book is about, the first days of school. I really recommend you to read this book if you haven't already. It's very famous, and hopefully it'll help you guys as you prepare to become a teacher.